Over the last 18 months, my aging Dell XPS M1330 from mid-2007 has seen less and less use due to two factors. Firstly, I got a new desktop computer which blows its performance out of the water, and secondly, the laptop got too hot to function without significant slowdown. Not to mention the 4 minutes of battery life I got. In light of this, I decided the battery was no longer an important part of this computer, and I wanted to cool it down. So, I did what any reasonable person would do and stick it in a desktop PC case, providing fans and significantly more ventilation. Thanks to Cameron from Anywhere Computer Accessories and Francis from Fractal Design, we got our hands on a Fractal Design Define R4, a very sleek and quiet ATX sized computer case. A friend of mine also had a spare 500 watt power supply, so I was good to go. From here, I needed to take the laptop motherboard and associated components out of the laptop shell and put them into the case. An easy enough task, right? Not really. Actually removing the motherboard and drives from the laptop was easy enough, with a simple Google search yielding a manual for disassembling the whole computer. After removing every single component, including the display, to get to the motherboard, I finally had it out. The motherboard came in two parts, the main section and then an arm bit for connecting to the USB port on the other side of the laptop case. There was also the detachable express card slot, Wi-Fi catcher, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas, optical drive, which I had replaced with the original mechanical hard drive after I placed the original hard drive with an SSD, and finally the SSD, which all needed to be removed. Following this arduous process, I attempted to reassemble the whole computer on my desk in its headless form, taking advantage of the VGA out for the display instead of connecting to the original display. After maybe 10 attempts with different parts of the computer attached or not attached, I finally got the computer to turn on, but I quickly turned it off again for fear of overheating as there was no air circulation. Great, I didn't break anything. The next step was putting it into the case. Of course, the laptop motherboard didn't conform to any regular motherboard standard, so I needed to drill some holes in the case. Here, I was given multiple options for where and in what orientation I wanted to mount the motherboard. As you can see, I ended up mounting it with the ports facing to the top of the case. There was no way I could have got the ports in line with the hole for the I/O, and this way I figured heat would be dispelled through the cutout for the CPU cooler. When I originally put the motherboard in this orientation to test it, I thought I would have sufficient access to the ports. The metal holding the motherboard isn't too thick, so drilling through it wasn't a huge issue once we find the right diameter drill bit. Following the drilling, I've put the standoffs in and mounted the motherboard. The motherboard looked great and I was quite impressed with my drilling efforts, yet there was one major problem. I couldn't get the power cord in. Despite my incredibly accurate and proven technique of just looking to see through if there would be adequate clearance, I decided there was. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and so in order to get the top part of the power cable in, I needed to drill through the grill at the top of the case. Yes, it looks bad, but it was the only way I was going to get the cable in. The other cables weren't as big of an issue as the power cable, as they weren't as long, but it still took a bit of effort to get them in, and I won't be unplugging them anytime soon. Despite this lack of versatility in cabling, I was okay with it, as I could just hide the excess cable in the case if I wasn't using it. In the future, I could possibly make up my own I/O shield and use small extension cables from the top of the motherboard to the back of the case, so it functions just like a regular desktop, but this issue isn't a high priority. To access the USB ports, I ran a short USB extension cable from the top motherboard port to the front 5.25 inch drive. It just sits there until I need to access it. Soon I'll order an internal USB to external USB converter so I can use the case's inbuilt front USB ports. At the moment I just have a USB hub in the front 5.25 inch drive. I'll likely do the same with the audio ports too. That does leave the power button, which I'm not really sure how I'll get working. To turn on the computer, I need to open the case and press a button that used to sit where the laptop's power button was. I may be able to solder the front button's wires onto the laptop motherboard, but I've never soldered anything before, and the place where I need to connect the wires isn't exactly accommodating. A final issue is the lack of Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi card's still there, but because the antennas previously ran through the display, and I've removed the display, the Wi-Fi range is about 3 inches. At some point, I'll pick up a cheap antenna on eBay for about $10. So you may be wondering why I've gone to all this effort. Well, I primarily want to run this computer as a low power, low noise server. At the moment I have it running a Minecraft server, as you can see in our Let's Admin series, but I also want to run it as a general purpose file server. I have two 2TB hard drives in my desktop which I want to move over, but I need more SATA ports, of which I can remedy using a mini PCIe SATA card. On top of that, though, I also need to run power to the hard drives, as well as the computer case fans, which is where the power supply comes in. There are two main issues with using a 500 watt power supply. Firstly, it uses significantly more power than it otherwise would, with just 2 hard drives and 2 fans. Secondly, it is another thing I need to turn on for this computer to work. To turn on a power supply and have it running, you need to have the green wire of the 20 or 24 pin plug connected to any one of the black or grounding wires. To do this, I stripped off the ends of a cable tie and stuck each end into the two different holes. This works, but it's not pretty. I'm hoping that I might be able to get some power of either the USB ports or one of the existing hard drive ports. This would require a plethora of various adapters and converters, however would keep the computer using a minimal amount of power and I only have to press one on button. In terms of performance, I didn't really do any testing on the laptop while it was in the laptop case. However, I found the computer can run for a lot longer without significant slowdown, which was the main problem of the old laptop case. The motherboard fan never goes to full blast, and the temperature of the hottest component, which is the graphics card, never goes above 70 degrees, which is a significant improvement. Ultimately, this was a pretty big process, and it took me a few weeks to get it into the state it is now. Obviously, I have a lot of things lined up in the future for this case, but at the moment it works and works well. One thing to note is somewhere in the process one of my RAM slots stopped working, and SODIMM DDR2 memory costs heaps, so I'm currently only running with 2GB of RAM. You can use USB drives as RAM with ReadyBoost, so I might try that. In saying that, this computer works fine for the current purpose of running a 24/7 Minecraft server, and I look forward to the different tasks I can do with it in the future. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, please like this video and subscribe for more videos like this one.